Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Sporlitiks, where sports and fun.
A lot of Americans today remember Bob Dole as a presidential candidate, but
Good evening and welcome to Sporlitiks, where sports and politics mix and mingle. I'm Stacey Johnson. Joining me tonight is Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative, Stephen, the independent thinker, and my cousin Todd. Breaking news, former Congressman Mark Meadows sues House January 6th committee and will no longer work with them. The college football bowl schedule with the list of matchups, dates, and times. Some parents knowingly sent their children to school after they tested positive for COVID-19, and as a result, 75 classmates were forced to quarantine. Vigneault fired as Flyers head coach, a new civil military force in Florida that he would control. Week 13 in the NFL, how did your team do? Democrats want to revive efforts to compensate Black World War II veterans denied benefits. The U.S. announces diplomatic boycott of Beijing Winter Olympics. The U.S. Department of Justice fights discrimination in lawsuit against Texas over voting districts. Uniformed white nationalist group marched at the Lincoln Memorial, and the Atlantic magazine claims that Trump's coup has already begun. We will talk about the GOP and what it's doing to its own dissenters. Tonight began for former Minnesota police officer Kim Potter, charged in the death of Daunte Wright. House of Representatives passed both the National Defense Authorization Act and a process bill that delays Medicare sequestration cuts while providing the Senate with a one-time exemption to pass a debt limit increase by a simple majority vote. According to the Hill, the Senate will take an initial vote tomorrow, Thursday, on a bill that prevents Medicare cuts and green lights a one-time exemption from the filibuster for a subsequent debt ceiling bill. Speaker Nancy Pelosi predicted today that both chambers of Congress will pass the $2 trillion expansion of social benefits and climate programs before Christmas, and more. I don't know how in the world we're going to fit it in. Please forgive Blog Talk Radio for our earlier problems. They were having some technical difficulties. But as you originally heard, you heard President Biden talking about Senator Bob Dole. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends of the senator, and let's hear what the president had to say before we move on to sports.
a lot of Americans today remember Bob Dole as a presidential candidate, but for families he represented across the border, he represented Kansas for 36 years. And for those like me who had the honor of calling him a friend, Bob Dole was an American giant, a man of extraordinary courage, both physical and moral courage, a war hero who sacrificed beyond measure, who nearly gave his life for our country in World War II, among the greatest of the great generation, a leader of honesty, decency, and good humor. The same qualities that made him such a cherished friend to me and my wife Jill, and so many others through the years. We didn't agree on everything, but I always admired and respected him and his willingness to work with anyone, any party, when it mattered most. And our nation owes Bob Dole a debt of gratitude for the remarkable service and a life well lived.
Okay, Stephen, do you want to say anything about Bob Dole, then Aguna, then Cousin Todd, and his service to our country before we move on to sports?
Oh, he was a first-class American hero, and he got tore up in the war, and I voted for him for president, and I wish he had won, and I know probably a lot of other people would as well. But Clinton, back in those days, the Democratic Party could work a little bit more with Republicans and vice versa. So, yeah, he's going to be missed. He's a brilliant man, a very brave man, and this country was a better place because people like him are in it, or he was in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd just say, it's funny because, when he was running, that was kind of the last time, he was he was one of the last candidates. I think he was the last candidate to run for president that had served in World War II. Because I know George Bush Sr. had served in World War II. And back then, to Stephen's point, it was a little bit more, you had a unifying Congress around certain issues, especially when it comes to like national security and foreign policy. There were things that they would do back then that would get you thrown out of the Republican Party, quite frankly, at this point. Because, at that point, any type of working across the aisle was actually encouraged. Because at the end of the day, you didn't have to have 100% of your platform. You knew that the Democrats had a vote, the Democrats knew Republicans had a vote. So the healthy medium didn't mean that you were no longer part of that party anymore. Like today, they throw Bob Dole out the party. He was right in there with the Bushes and the Cheneys and all of that are ostracized in today's Republican Party. And so it's interesting, hopefully the people will reflect on his life and his career as an American and see where, from a Congress perspective, there was issues that crossed the aisle that both could get behind and get things done for the behalf of the American people. And they didn't have that narrative and all this stuff that you have today where folks have to find any little thing to demonize the other. So it's unfortunate, that he passed, but again, he represents a different time in America where, government actually didn't, you weren't an enemy. You were just had different viewpoint.
That's absolutely true. I'm gonna have to cut you off because you're going on and on and on. I of course is right. I feel the same way. I was going to, and I'm not going to reiterate because I was going to say the same thing, that when he was in office, I didn't agree with everything he said, but back then he was, at least he seemed fair-minded, along with Stacey, the one you worked for, Bush Jr. And so back then it was normal. Now, all of those Republicans would be thrown out of office. All of them, Bush, Bob Dole, you name it. So these radical Republicans have taken over. So I miss him now. I miss those kinds of Republicans, rational, sensible, at least the appearance of being fair. So he'll be missed, along with Bush.
Well,
here.
when you say that, Cousin Todd, I assume that you're talking, I don't understand, Cousin Todd, how you can miss the type of Republicans that Aguna and I are, the rational, sensible Republicans. I'm sure you miss Bob Dole, but, Aguna and I are those type of Republicans.
Right. And it's an obvious difference between Stephen and Keith with their radical selves and you and Aguna. Sensible, in the middle,
well, you
rational.
said that. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I never said that Stephen and Keith are not rational.
Oh, get out of here.
And what about the left-wing radicals? They wouldn't
Just
accept
a minute. Right
Bill Clinton today. They wouldn't accept Bill Clinton.
Right
they wouldn't
now,
accept
the
Bill Clinton
conversation
in the
is
Democratic
about
Party today.
radicals. You see how he keeps talking over me? and it was my turn
I didn't.
to talk.
I'm just saying, listen, if you're going to talk about the right radicals, you have to talk about the left.
When you and I talk, she says, okay, hurry up, make your point fast. Do you understand what I'm saying, Aguna? Oh, okay.
He's on mute.
And you know the deflection's coming. You know the deflection is coming in there.
Well, Aguna, how can you get on Todd's side that fast when he just told you to shut up because he said you were going on and on and on?
I'm not on his side. I'm not on his side. I'm just making a point.
Yeah, and I was just making a point. I wasn't trying to talk over you, Todd. I was just saying that Bill Clinton wouldn't be in the Democrat Party today. It's gone so far left, and there's a lot of radical left that has decided what the Democrat Party is going to be today.
I don't know if I agree with that because Hillary just ran for president not too long ago, so I don't know if that's true.
And she lost.
It's not true, but
yeah, but she didn't lose to another Democrat.
She did not.
No, but the radicals have just came by recently. The radicals have just come by recently. That's after Hillary ran. That's after Hillary ran.
And she did win the popular vote.
What I was saying. Go ahead and take
I understand. But what I'm saying is the left wing has taken over recently. The left wing has taken over recently after Hillary ran.
I don't think so. They're not. What do you mean taking over? They're not
the radicals have tried to take over, like
let's move
AOC.
On. So let's go back to sports.
This is one person.
Well, I know. Right now, you look at our group, and
that was one
our
example.
Identity is not. We don't have an identity. We don't. We get a goal scored on, and we kind of stop playing. I mean, we need to find that confidence in our group. We need to believe that even if a team scores the first goal, that we just keep playing our game, believe in our game, knowing that our style of play and how we play as a team is going to get us the win. So I think when we get that mindset and we don't start panicking and trying to do our own thing out there and just play as a team, just right there, it's gonna give us the confidence to just play our game.
Okay, that was the Flyers' Claude Giroux talking about where the Flyers are now. So the Philadelphia Flyers, according to NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com, a day after the Flyers' 8th straight loss, the head coach was fired Monday, along with assistant coach Theoren. The assistant coach, Mike Yell, will fill in as the interim head coach. But Vinot's tenure in Philadelphia went surprisingly south and quickly. In 2019 to 2020, his first season with the Flyers, he finished as a runner-up for the Jack Adams Award, Coach of the Year. When the season resumed after COVID, the Flyers finished one win shy of the Eastern Conference Final. Aguna, why do you think they fired him so quickly?
Man, I'm not quite sure. I know I really don't follow hockey until like after the All-Star, but this is weird because the Flyers were starting off pretty good in the beginning. I don't know what happened, and all of a sudden, I was shocked that they fired their coach so quickly. So I guess, they're trying to make sure that. I think there may be some other things going to it, to be honest with you, just other than the losses, because they were actually started off fairly strong early on, but again, like I said, I don't follow hockey till really after the All-Star.
So, Stephen, why do you think they fired the head coach so soon?
I would have to assume it's because of the Philly fans going off and being Philly fans, and then they have to, kind of go by what because they run the place. I mean, if you don't have your fans, you don't have anything else. And the Philly fans are vocal. I'm not putting anybody down. I think it's a great thing. If you can make changes that you think need to be changed, and by voicing what you want them to hear, and they do it, that's not a bad thing. So that's the only thing I can think is why they would do it so fast, because they want to win right away, and if you don't win right away, sometimes the fans go crazy, and sometimes the administration will go crazy, and they'll just look for excuses just to fire somebody or do something and just try to shake it up.
Well, I agree that the fans tend to be vocal, but nothing in Philly is done because of the fans. I mean, the fans get a bad reputation because, we're, rowdy, we're always acting up in games and stuff, but I mean, from hockey to soccer to no matter what, the fans are usually the victims of bad management and bad leadership and bad ownership. Because nothing the owners do are because of the fans. These guys are out to make money.
Right.
So that's going to be the premier factor number one. The fans they may think about the fans later on if for concession sales or whatever, because that's not how they're making their money. They're making money off of these television deals and all this other stuff. So, but the fans, we get a bad rap because it's like the Philly fans suck. It's like they don't do anything because of the Philly fans. They don't even listen to the fans. It's like in Washington. They don't listen to the fans in Washington. They just...
Yeah, and I'll go along with that. It's probably poor management is what it comes down to. I agree. That's probably more the culprit than anything else. Just poor management.
So, Cousin Todd, do you have a comment on this before we move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Serena.
Once they start, I don't know what he's saying. What is happening here?
He said Serena. That's what he said.
Oh, gosh. Anyway, I hope under the new leadership they will practice. In the next game, I hope they score at least 100 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Stephen, how are your Caps doing?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm so much into football right now, college and pro.
All right.
I don't know.
So
do you know?
Fantasy playoffs are coming up.
No, I don't know. I'm just starting to get into Philadelphia Flyers because I was named by my friends, not the official Flyers organization, but my friends named me the honorary goalie coach for the Philadelphia Flyers. They said I was the first African-American female honorary goalie coach. Because if the goalies had to listen to me, we would have won more games.
Right.
I haven't gotten back into my position as the honorary goalie coach yet, but when I do, we'll be talking more about the Flyers.
Just a minute.
Congratulations are in order.
Clear here. What difference does it make if you're black or white or a girl or a boy? Why do you even have to mention your race or your gender? I don't understand that. Explain it to me, Republican.
Okay, I will. Let me put you on mute, and I'll explain it to you. Now, off the college football.
That's the typical Republican for you.
I don't understand, and we talked about this before, Stephen and Aguna. I don't understand why we're still talking about the bowls. I thought they said college football would be playoffs, but they're naming everything the bowls. We've got the Orange Bowl coming up December 31st. We've got, you know what I mean? What I can't stand these bowls. We got the Cotton Bowl Classic December 31st. We've got the Peach Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Bahamas Bowl, the Cure Bowl, the Celebration Bowl, the Boca Raton Bowl, the New Mexico Bowl. What is going on? Where's the playoffs?
And the Gravy Bowl.
Do you know which one I'm looking forward to, Stacy? Virginia Tech and Maryland. They're playing in the Pinstripe Bowl, whatever the Pinstripe Bowl is. But Virginia Tech and Maryland are playing, and SMU and UVA are playing, and they were 6-6. But I'm just glad they're going to be in a bowl, and they'll probably win their games.
Okay.
What about
make
you?
A comment?
No, nobody wants to hear your comment. Aguna, we're talking about bowls, and since you don't know, Todd, the difference between hockey, baseball, or football, we'll get back to you. Go ahead, Aguna.
Well, yeah, the bowls are important because you want games after Christmas, around Christmas, for a lot of these college kids that are trying to make or either going to the combine or maybe going pro, or just a lot of these seniors, it's their last time to play before they go into their careers and graduate. So the bowl season's always cool, especially college football, because these kids, they're playing because they're passionate for the sports. A lot of these guys aren't going pro. So this is their last time to even play any type of organized football at this level, even though you may have D1, these are D1 schools, and these programs are probably, like Stephen was saying, 6-6. So it's good to see the guys at least get some exposure, and it's always great to have football all around the holidays. So the bowls are important. It's also sponsorship. And now with these student athletes getting paid, it's important for them to be able to, get some type of exposure there, and I'd like to see that expanded a little bit more. But I'm, I don't know if you're going to jump to the Final Four, because this is going to be an interesting playoffs. I mean, we're definitely going to have the playoffs running up to the final. Isn't the Sugar Bowl the final bowl? I know. Do they rotate the final championship now because they have those 4 games or whatever? This is going to be interesting. This is going to be a really good. I mean, you got to have sponsorship. There's a lot of money to be made in college sports, but this is going to be a great. And Stephen was right. I mean, I know you probably jump into it, Stacy, but I mean, Stephen was right about Alabama. I mean, I did not expect them to take it to Georgia like that, not at all. So this is going to be interesting, man. I didn't think. I knew that Alabama had, Nick Saban would have something up his sleeve, but I underestimated Alabama's offense against Georgia's defense. I thought Georgia's defense was going to have a lot better time, but what I didn't consider also was Georgia's offense. Georgia's offense just could not get going, and they weren't, and it's interesting because they never played from behind all year until that game. So it was, it kind of goes to show you that, once you get the champ on the ropes and they've never been on the ropes before, they kind of panic and they get away from what they're doing, and they just couldn't get into a rhythm, and Alabama just really took it to them. So it's going to be interesting.
So the Cotton Bowl Classic on December 31st at 3:30 p.m. ESPN will be number 1 Alabama versus number 4 Cincinnati. Georgia will play December 31st at 7:30 p.m. in Miami, and they're playing number 2 Michigan. And then my Auburn team will be playing. When are they playing? I'm looking for that. I'm sorry. I lost that
man. So can we talk about this for a minute? Because these teams, I don't know if Stephen agrees with the top 4 or not.
Wait a minute. Auburn is playing Houston, number 20 Houston, on December 28th at noon at ESPN. So what are you asking, question, Aguna?
I'm talking about the top 4. The final 4 in college football. And I want to know, do we agree? Because the thing is, there are 2 SEC teams in here, right? So we knew that if Georgia would have won, Alabama probably wouldn't have been in the top 4. But Alabama, of course, won. So they got a 1 loss. And then you got Georgia's only loss to Alabama. So it's like you can't not have those 2 teams in the Final Four. But then you get teams, you get Ohio State, you get some of these 1-loss teams on the peripheral that just don't get in there. Now, Michigan handled its business against Iowa, but the question mark is the Cincinnati team, because I don't know, man. This Cincinnati team against Alabama.
Cincinnati is 13-0. Cincinnati's 13-0.
Yeah, but it's who they played and how they played. They're just not that impressive to me, and I don't think they're going to do much with Alabama. I don't think they're going to have a lot of luck.
Not at all. And I think Michigan may have a tough time with Georgia. I mean, Georgia has a very good stout run defense. I just don't see Michigan, even though Harbaugh is a great coach, he took it to Ohio State. But, I mean, you're running right into the strength of the Georgia defense. And I just don't think Georgia's going to want to – I think Georgia wants a rematch with Alabama bad. So I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see an SEC title game and a national championship game with 2 of the same teams. That's what I'm predicting. I just don't see Cincinnati beating Alabama. That'll be one of the biggest upsets in sports history. Even though
that'll be
Cincinnati's
the biggest
undefeated.
upset in sports history. Yes, it will.
Yeah, and it'll be Alabama and Georgia, and everybody wants that. Everybody wants to see this game again and see what Georgia can do. It's going to be a great, great game, and I agree with you. That's where it's going to go. It's going to be a nice game.
And Georgia
now,
was
look how you
embarrassed.
2 are agreeing so nicely.
Well, this is around sports, so I mean, sports is a unifying factor in the world. So as long as, if Congress could talk about sports, they'd probably get a lot more done.
Let's just make this a total sports show from now on. Leave politics aside.
No,
ma'am. Would have nothing to talk about.
I know.
I would, number 1, and number 2, Stephen is not interested. He's already got Keith, and he's not double dipping. So, Aguna, forget it. Now, I wanted to ask a question.
Nobody wants to know about your question. So
Is
let's
it about
talk about
college
the four
football?
finalists for the 2021 Heisman Trophy Award.
It's about
Defensive
hockey.
end Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan, Kenny Pickett, quarterback from Pittsburgh, C.J. Stroud, quarterback from Ohio State, and Bryce Young, quarterback from Alabama. Who do you think is going to get that Heisman Trophy, Stephen?
I don't have any idea. I think it would have to be a quarterback. Probably the Alabama quarterback.
Yeah, after that
Aguna?
performance in that, I mean, the thing is, I agree, Young will probably get it, especially after his performance against Georgia. Now, you got to realize Georgia never led or, never, was behind ever. And he basically – and he's not a real mobile quarterback. He's not, he is mobile. He has the capabilities of being it, but he's a pocket guy. And he picked them apart, and he used his legs when he had to, and he went up against the number one defense in the country and made them look foolish. So, I mean, this guy, and it was on the national stage. So I don't see how you can't give it to Young. But I know the running back from Michigan has also made a case for it. But, I don't know when the Heisman is awarded. I think is it before the national title game? Because if Michigan runs all over Georgia, then, there may be that may be a case there. But I just don't see Michigan doing that. I just don't. Georgia's going to be really – they're going to be really tough, especially coming off that embarrassing loss. It's going to be one of those things where you just gotta. But yeah, I think Young gets it hands down at this point.
Yep. He deserves it.
Okay, Todd, what did you want to say? Make it very, very fast because nobody wants to hear.
Asking me.
It's about hockey.
Well, probably. No, I was answering the question you just asked Stephen and Keith. So I'll do that first. That's probably going to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, getting back to this hockey thing, and you're the black girl player or whatever you call it, why is it? What is it? I'm just challenging you Republicans because you all are two-faced and you talk out of both sides of your mouth. For example, if somebody said they were gay, oh, what in the world? This is Stephen. Why do you even have to say that? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Who cares? Why do you ever? And then his friend Keith, when they said somebody was the first black, I mean, what difference does it make what the race is? He's the first black. He accomplished something. Be proud of that. I mean, so, Stacy, why is it important that you said that you were the first black female goalie for the Flyers? Why is that important?
I don't even know what that means.
So I said I didn't say that. A friend of mine dubbed me that or nicknamed me the first African-American female honorary goalie coach for the Flyers.
Okay.
So let's talk about your team. How did the Washington football team do, Stephen?
Well, they went to Las Vegas, and I was worried about them because I thought they'd be gambling all night. And they have a lot of young people on the team, but they held it together. They got their business together. They beat Las Vegas in Las Vegas, and it was a very close game. And it's how they're gonna play. They're like the heart attack kids of the old days. And we have Dallas this week. This is Dallas week. This is the biggest week of the year so far for the Reds. +4, so I'm taking the Redskins getting 4 points at home. It's kind of an insult, being that this should be a really close game, maybe 2 or 3 points either way. I think Dallas has shown that they can hang with the Skins, and the Skins have shown they can hang with Dallas. So it's going to be a great game. I'd love to go. I might even finagle away to try to go, because that's going to be like the game of the year, because we have a quarterback now that can move, that just does his own thing. He loves Brett Favre, so he plays like that. He's kind of in his mold. So we have a team now, and I think we have a team that can compete with Dallas. even when they're full strength, even when we're not, because I think we're playing as a team and not just a bunch of superstars. So it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think the Skins will take Dallas this week.
Okay, Guna, that win we had, the Eagles did over the Jets.
Yeah, and I'll just say this about the Washington game, because this is one of the games where the Eagles will benefit from no matter what the outcome is, right? We always pull against Dallas no matter what, but where Washington is in the playoff standings in the wild card race, we kind of need Washington to lose if there's even a chance. Now, I'm shocked to even be talking playoffs at this point, because that Giants game that the Eagles lost was ridiculous. Now, they did come back and they beat the Jets. And now, voila, there's a quarterback controversy in Philadelphia because this Minshew mania is taking hold. And it's the most ridiculous quarterback controversy I ever heard of, because Minshew, granted, he won the game. He won the game, but he was supposed to. And unfortunately, Hurts lost the Giants game. Now, I know he came down. Rager dropped a couple passes at the end, but it should never came down to that. Hurts threw some really bad. I mean, you can't turn the ball over 3 times, 2 times in the red zone. And so now with Minshew, who didn't turn the ball over at all, threw 2 touchdown passes in the first quarter, threw for 242 yards, just managed the game. It was just the Jets. But in Philadelphia, it's just such an emotional fan base that they're just wanting a change, and Hurts is under a microscope. And so it really comes down to, these last 4 games. And so right after Washington plays Dallas, the Eagles play Washington. We have a bye week now, and that's basically going to be the game of Hurts' career. If he beats Washington, he may get he has to really beat Washington and really win out to really be considered, a franchise guy in the eyes of some fans. But the problem is, what's the ending game, right? Because unless Dallas just completely falls apart and the Eagles or Washington gets a chance to get a home game or steal a division, there's no glory in going to the playoffs and playing Green Bay, Arizona, or Tampa Bay and getting whacked in the first round. I mean, that's what's going to end up happening now. It will be a good news story to make the playoffs for Sirianni his first year, but at the same time, I just don't think Minshew or Hurts has proven to be the guy. Now, Hurts has a bigger upside just because he can run, but I mean his tendencies as a quarterback are very frustrating. His one read and run and all this other stuff that he's been doing, it gets really frustrating watching him play, and the inconsistency in that Giants game, I think, really did him in.
They're going to replace him, I believe. I said when they first said he had an ankle injury, I said, I wonder who they're going to play. And then this white boy appeared, the great white hope. I said, that little black boy's days are numbered, because he's going to win, and then it's over. And I would continue to use him. And Stacey and I were talking about this. And they said, but all the money they're paying the black guy, why would they? Doesn't matter. Philadelphia likes winners. And he won, and he's going to win the next game. And then the black boy is going to find himself in Alabama or Georgia, somewhere like that.
Oh, Jesus. He has to go back to college.
Here's the thing. I get what you're saying, Todd, but in this league, injury is what happens, right? So injury, you lose your job more so to injury than even talent, because you look at what happened with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott came in for Romo, who was injured, and Dak Prescott played so well. He doesn't even know
who Dak Prescott is, and he doesn't even know what team Dak Prescott plays for. So I don't know why you're wasting your time trying to explain.
I'm just saying this.
Oh, she's so ignorant and rude. I know exactly who Zach Prescott is.
Well, here's the thing.
Zach. It's D, not Z.
Dakota Prescott.
Who does he play for, Cousin Todd? Just ask him, Cousin Todd, who does Zach play for? And don't Google it.
Go ahead, Aguna.
He doesn't know.
Here's the thing.
No, he doesn't know.
Here's the thing. Because at the end of the day, this is on Jalen Hurts, though. And, you know, whether or not you want to talk about black, white, whatever going on, Hurts had an opportunity against the Giants to win that game, and he didn't. So the fact that we have Minshew mania is all on Jalen Hurts because he created the skepticism. If he would have won the Giants game like he should have by a couple touchdowns or whatever, because clearly they were the better team, nobody would be talking about it. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about Minshew or anybody, because even though he couldn't play in that game against the Jets, everybody would be like, okay, you know, he's our guy. He beat a division rival. He's earned the spot. But he left question and skepticism in there. You know, I will, you know, in football, I know there's a lot of bureaucracy, perceptions, and all this other stuff going on. But at the end of the day, if you do your job, you look at Aaron Rodgers. He came in there. He was like, look, you can draft whoever you want to in the first round. He's not going to see the field until I'm done with football, because that's how much of a competitor I am and how good I am.
Yeah, but you all, Philadelphia won the Super Bowl with a backup quarterback.
Who did Aaron Rodgers lose to the first game of the year, Aguna? Who did Aaron Rodgers lose to the first game of the year and looked pathetic? I can't even remember. It was such a pathetic team that beat them. They said, well, the Green Bay won't be good this year, but you know what? He had a bad day. And the Philadelphia quarterback had a bad day, like I said last week. Let a guy have a bad day. So y'all crucified him for one bad game because he didn't beat the Giants. Now you have to punish him. Y'all, you just have to beat him down. It's so hilarious.
Here's the thing.
He had one bad game.
Aaron Rodgers has earned the right to have a bad game, okay? He's the greatest
I don't even
quarterback
understand
in the
that.
game.
I don't understand that. I don't understand it.
Okay,
Last week when you said it, I'm not being disrespectful. I just don't understand that. How can somebody who's been playing for 20 years, get a pass on a bad day, but somebody who's just it's basically still learning on the job, but you can't give him a pass for having a bad day? That's nonsensical to me.
You just answered your own question. You answered your own question. You answered your own question. Because here, Aaron Rodgers is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, MVP. Yeah, if he has a bad day, okay,
but
great.
You allow him to have a bad day, but somebody who's a youngster who's had some really good games, that's inexperienced, then he has a bad game because part of that is lack of experience, and you want to beat him up for having a bad game. Y'all are so bitter about that Giant game because Philly should have won, just like he said it. Y'all are so bitter, man. Y'all are tough fans. Y'all are tough.
Here's the bottom line. First thing, you don't lose to the Giants. You don't lose to the Giants ever.
You're making my point. You don't lose to the Giants. You're making my point. Y'all are too hard on him for that.
You can't. Look, this ain't pansy ball. I know this is.
It's a team effort. It's not just a quarterback. It's not just a quarterback.
How do you know?
It's a team game.
So you're saying this guy who's trying to prove himself and doesn't.
Did Hurts play defense? Was Hurts on the line? Was he a lineman? You can't be mad at him. He's one person.
No.
That's a whole team.
Did you see the game?
So he lost the game single-handedly. He lost the Giants game.
He did.
Okay, we got to move on.
I'll explain it to you. Hold on, Stacey. Let me finish because obviously Steven didn't watch the game. He threw the game. That's hilarious. Okay, well, listen then. He threw two interceptions in the red zone that he didn't have to throw. And both of those led to left points on the board, and he didn't have to make those decisions. He played hard. He had a 15% passing rating, and he's not Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame, about to go to the Hall of Fame, Super Bowl winning quarterback. Yeah, he can have a bag. He's been to the playoffs. Nobody's questioning Aaron Rodgers' ability. You don't give
Aaron Rodgers
a quarterback
has
trying to
thrown half a dozen interceptions in a game. Aaron Rodgers threw half a dozen interceptions in one game.
A Super Bowl. He has a Super Bowl. After this show,
maybe Hurts will have a Super Bowl if you give him enough time to develop. If you give Hurts enough time to develop, he could take you to the Super Bowl.
So Steven, this is my last point. Okay, who would you rather as your quarterback, Aaron Rodgers or Hurts?
I would rather have Tom Brady.
Okay,
exactly.
good.
You would say Aaron Rodgers because you don't want to admit that you're wrong in this thing.
I'm being a smart ass because I went from Aaron Rodgers to Tom Brady, and everybody says they're the top two of all time. Some people say that. what
Rodgers
I'm
has
saying
earned
is,
the
of
right.
course,
Okay,
you
I
want the
gotta
best
move on.
guy.
Jalen Hurts,
But if the
boy,
best guy, if Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or anybody has a bad day, you're like, well, they deserve a bad day. They've been doing it for 20 years. This guy's been doing it for 20 months. He can't have a bad day. That's not logical.
We already said that. Listen, we cannot talk about baseball the whole time. Now let's move on.
You're right, Todd. Let's move on.
When the Olympic flame is lit in Beijing, American athletes will be there to compete. But neither President Biden nor any other U.S. officials will be attending. The White House announcing a diplomatic boycott of the Games to protest China's human rights abuses, including crushing the democracy movement in Hong Kong, threatening Taiwan, what the U.S. calls genocide against the minority Uyghurs, and the recent disappearance of tennis star Peng Shuai after she accused a top Beijing official of sexual assault. Human rights groups wanted a total boycott, as Jimmy Carter did in 1980, when he kept athletes home from the Moscow Olympics after the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. Others disagree. Senator Romney, is a diplomatic boycott the way to go? Some members of both parties want a complete boycott, including the athletes.
I don't feel that the burden of our international policies should fall on the shoulders of these young people. So let's make our statement loud and clear through not sending diplomats to Beijing.
Still, Beijing's response today immediate and furious, calling it an offense to China's 1.4 billion people. A spokesman saying, if the U.S. is insistent on going down the wrong path, China will take necessary and resolute countermeasures. Despite talk of a new Cold War between the U.S. and China, Washington needs China to pressure Iran against going nuclear and to work on trade and climate change. But the White House is under heavy pressure from both parties in Congress to get tougher with Beijing.
So is this a great option, Keith, for the United States to show some sort of pressure towards Beijing and not send any U.S. diplomats?
Uh-oh. He's probably Googling it. Okay.
So, Todd.
I think, yeah.
Todd, the diplomatic boycott won't prevent American athletes from competing. Do you think that gives enough bite in our boycott?
Not necessarily, but it's a start. You don't want to go all out. We're just showing our disapproval.
Why don't you want to go all out?
Well, Joe Biden.
Yeah, why not?
I would go a little further, but because Americans always go from zero to war, and we've just come out of a 4-year psychopath. So we're not trying to go all out like that. He's getting his point across that he is displeased. He doesn't want to take anything away from these athletes. And it's strange because Keith, you and Stephen, why should the athletes be punished and blah, blah, blah. Remember, they were saying maybe they shouldn't go because of the coronavirus to the Olympics. And why should they be punished? And when it was a weight thing, maybe we should do it next time. So that was your excuse then. Now, of course, since it's Joe Biden, you're not saying that. You probably think he should hold the athletes back. That's a Republican for you. These radicals go from 0 to 100.
So, Stephen, do you think they should hold the athletes back?
Oh, I think it would be horrible if our government tells our athletes that they're not allowed to compete when they all of their lives to get here, and this is what they need so much. I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise anybody to go to China right now. I don't think it's a healthy place for your body, and it's not healthy for your soul, and it's not healthy for possibly for your freedom. And it's I think everybody should just boycott China completely until they meet our demands.
That would mean
everybody would go against them and say, look, because China says that it's propaganda to say that they have committing genocide against the Muslim Uyghurs. They say that's propaganda, but everybody knows it's true. So maybe if everybody's really hard on them, they'll release these people from their camps.
So then you're saying
and stop raping and killing these people. and doing all the other things they've done, and the virus that they sent the whole world that they started in a laboratory in their country.
At some point,
right. So I think everybody should
point.
boycott them. I think everybody should.
Okay. All right.
Now,
he thinks
now,
we should.
Stacey,
now, let me
do
ask,
you know what he means? Stacey, wait.
No, I don't.
That was a lot of battles. Do you know what he means? Of course not. Nobody does.
No.
This is trained behavior. Is he saying athletes should not go or go when he says everybody should boycott? What does he mean?
I'm saying everybody should go. I think everybody should go, but it's such a horrible place to go that if people are going to boycott, if some people are not going to go, then everybody shouldn't go, or everybody should go and kick their rear ends the way we did Germany at the time. It's just China is Germany. China is our Nazis.
Okay, let me ask Aguna.
Well,
according to this Axios.com article, China said in April that there will be a robust China response if the U.S. staged a full boycott of the games. That's going to start this coming February. So what type of, that was almost like a threat, wasn't it, from China?
Yeah, I mean, all this is nothing. I mean, there's no way that U.S. is going to fully boycott China, and China's not going to do anything. I mean, this is a global economy. A lot of our electronics and stuff are built over there. I mean, Trump ties are being built in China as Trump's building his ties or manufacturer.
And his daughter.
And there's a lot of talk. I mean, it's probably from a symbolic standpoint more than an economic it's a matter of posturing and propaganda at this point. I do think there needs to be some type of diplomatic, response or dialogue going on and pressure put on. And that's all it is. You got to do something, but I mean, it's more so, from a perspective of diplomatic relations than anything. Because manufacturing-wise, if we boycott them and they try to do a response, and all of a sudden we're not getting products from China, China's not sending them here, both economies are going to fall into the toilet. And so that's not going to happen because this is capitalism reigns supreme in the U.S. So we're not going to sit there and not. I mean, we already have a supply chain issue as it is. So there's not, there's intertwined economies.
Right. So welcome to Sporlitiks, where sports and politics mix and mingle. Do you have a comment?
Yeah. Hey, guys. It's Jen.
Hey, Jenny.
Well, this is interesting because this is actually touching the tennis world, with Peng Shuai. I think she's a top, 30 player, and just, the statement that she, gave to the world a few months ago about being sexually assaulted and, manipulated by this man. So for the WTA, I was waiting for what the WTA, Women's Tennis Association, was going to respond with, and I had a feeling that I don't think they could go and continue having tournaments in China with that. I just, I was just like, you know what, if they did that, that would be like a horrible look for them. Like, this is one of WTA's own. She's, very good player. She's supported the WTA. They should support her. So I think I think it was either a few days ago or last week, the WTA president said that they're not going to hold any more tournaments in China. Now, I don't know if that's indefinitely, if we hear from Peng Shuai, and that one video, I don't know if you guys are aware, there was a video,
that video
supposedly of her out, and people are like, well, who knows when that video was made, and if it was the latest sighting of her, was she being coerced, etc. I personally I have, experience. There was a person I knew who visited where I was training in New York. I'm not even going to say where it was, but he was from China, and we just got to talking, and he said, this was in 2003. He said he was only able to come here just under the condition he signed a bunch of papers, and basically they said, if you don't come back, we're going to basically hold your family under financial hostage, basically. So if he didn't come back, they would just ruin his family financially. And I was like, is this real? Like, he's like, yeah. So, and he just told me just matter of fact, he's like, well, I'd love to stay here, but if I don't come back, my family will be ruined financially. and this is in 2003. I wasn't aware of the, just the reach of, the Chinese government into people's lives, and it is, to say that it's scary.
It's
and
very surprising.
Yeah,
totally different than what we're used to.
Yeah,
y'all are actually surprised by China acting like this?
No,
this is what China does.
Surprised. I'm so not surprised. Like I said, this was back in 2003 is when I first, not even first. Obviously we all know the famous picture of the young man standing in front of a tank, but back
Tiananmen
then,
Square.
Kids, right? And so it's just. I don't know. I'm just glad it doesn't have the original.
Here's the thing. If we say boycott,
one more comment,
China,
then I got to move on.
If we say boycott, because my question is to Stephen. So, are you going to stop buying Chinese products completely? You're going to go through your house right now and throw away everything that has made in China? Don't ask Stephen anything.
Yeah, that would be really difficult, and that's a good question, Aguna. That would be really difficult for everybody. Yeah, we are entwined with China, and maybe we're as dirty as they are sometimes, but I believe we're not.
According to this CNN.com article, one family's decision to send their child to school after testing positive for COVID-19 resulted in dozens of canceled Thanksgiving plans for other classmates, according to a California school district. Parents of one elementary student said they knew their child was tested positive for the virus, but continued to send them to school for 7 days. Superintendent of the Lake Port Madera School District in Marin County. The student attends Neil Cummins Elementary School in Corte Madera, about 30 minutes north of San Francisco. The parents' actions resulted in around 75 quarantines starting November 19th. Since we have a doctor on here who knows about viruses, will you give us the type of will you give us why that was so detrimental?
Yeah, and this
Dr.
is the
Jenny,
crossroads.
board certified.
Right. So here we see the crossroads between what people call so-called their right and the right of public safety. This is the crossroads right here. This is my right to send, but yet here you cause a public health crisis, as it were, in this little, community. You caused a public health crisis, and also you could potentially have, set someone on the road to death. So, I'm just really tired of these people who, and people are, you do your research. Do your research on these vaccines, and research doesn't include, looking at TikTok videos. And you can't argue with scientists, and you can't argue with people who actually have knowledge. And it's ridiculous. These are the same people who believe like the earth is flat. They, and they just make up stories without knowing anything. And I hate that we're actually having what we call arguments or discord with these. You can't have discord with a tree. A tree is a tree. A tree doesn't know anything about science. So,
yeah, but lots of doctors disagree with you. Lots of doctors disagree with you. Are they trees as well? Are they stupid people?
Yes,
what
a lot of them. You just made that up. All
the doctors that don't agree with you are stupid. I got you.
Name one, Stephen.
I'm sure there's like 2 or 3 quacks
That's a stupid
out there,
question.
No, that's a lot of doctors don't say don't get vaccinated. A lot of doctors say get vaccinated. There might be a few, 1 or 2 quacks, crazy people who say don't get vaccinated, but no, a lot of doctors say get vaccinated. So when you say a lot of doctors don't disagree with you, you just made that up. Absolutely.
I did not make it up. I did not make it. A lot of doctors disagree with you.
A lot of these doctors.
Let me get Keith here.
A lot of people are getting sick from these shots. A lot of people are getting sick from these shots, and we don't know the long term. We don't know the long term problems that they may cause in their lives.
When you say a lot,
so if you disagree with that, then you're ignorant to these shots because they rush these shots through.
Stephen, she's a doctor. You're saying she's ignorant.
I don't care if she's a doctor. I don't care if she's a doctor.
You don't care if I'm a doctor, but you care about all those other doctors a lot.
I'm saying there are doctors who disagree with you, but y'all But you on your side say we are right and those doctors are wrong.
Side, Stephen.
Why do you care
side.
about their opinion, but you don't care about a lot of doctors?
There are people who are getting sick and dying from getting the shots, and that's true. Do you understand that?
No, we got to speak one at a time. One at a time.
There are people that are dying and having bad reactions from these shots.
On mute. I want you to do an honor system. I want Dr. Jenny to explain why, real quickly, Dr. Jenny, why this is scientific as opposed to just, someone's opinion.
Because it's been proven for centuries. The polio vaccine, the measles vaccine, the mumps vaccine. There's statistics saying that if we hadn't gotten those vaccines, there would be apocalyptic epidemics of those diseases. Why they're not apocalyptic epidemics of those diseases is because people have been vaccinated. So all these people weren't crying and screaming when we had the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. I didn't really hear, but it's only in modern times when the social media came out that you got a couple of idiots out there who said, I did some research in the research, blah, 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 and they could never name where they did this research. Where? New England Journal of Medicine, American Journal of Clinical Pathology, those researchers? Okay, because I read those same ones. And so I have to agree that there's research on TikTok.
Stacey, I have one question. One question for Jenny. Can I have one question for Jenny real quick? One question for Jenny. So Stephen just said.
I'm not arguing with people who look at TikTok. That's it.
So Jenny, real quick question. So Stephen just said, and he said it again, a lot of people are dying from the shot, as if the shot is causing people to die. And this is another myth with people who don't understand how vaccines work or how these side effects are really impacting people. But he throws it out here as if it's massive amounts of people that are having these adverse reactions and dying from it. And that's part of that misinformation. Yeah, you're going to have Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you have side effects from flu shots and other types of shots, but it's to prevent the spread, and it actually helps your body fight the virus and actually helps your body have less symptoms when you do or get exposed to it. But people like Stephen want to throw things out there arbitrarily. A lot of people are dying. No, they're not.
A lot of people are having adverse effects from the shots, and that's the truth.
Okay. All right.
So,
I'm done arguing with people who have TikTok as their research. So, guys, it's been great. And
are we still getting polio shots? Did we have to get one every 4 weeks? Did we have to keep getting polio shots? Then why do we have to keep getting this shot every month? You know what? It's a glorified flu shot. That's all it is.
We eradicated polio because we got vaccinated. So there is no more polio.
Then we're not getting vaccinated. Why is it taking 4 or 5 times to take a shot? How many times does it take to get a polio vaccine? Once. So why is it taking 4 or 5 times for this vaccine? Because it's not a vaccine. That's a lie.
Go to medical school and find out. Why don't you go to medical school? And you can come up with a vaccine.
I'm a trained with the medical school. You're so much smarter.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not that. Okay, Jenny, before you leave, just say you are board certified in what?
In pathology. But I also have common sense. And I also know about...
I also have common sense. So you don't think I have common sense because I'm not a doctor.
No.
You think I'm a tree. You think I'm a tree. You think I get my information from TikTok. See, what are you? You're an elitist that just runs your mouth. Good for you.
Okay.
I didn't put you down. I didn't put you down, but you're going to put me down. I get my information from TikTok because I disagree with you.
Because you're making up stories and you're actually...
I didn't make up any stories. I didn't make up one story.
A lot of
the media lies to you and you believe it. Your government lies to you and you believe it.
Well, TikTok lies to you and
I
you
don't
believe
think...
it.
I don't believe.
I don't watch TikTok.
I think you believe the science.
You're showing yourself.
Listen to yourself.
You're showing yourself. You're showing who you are. You're showing who you really are.
A lot of doctors say the vaccine is dangerous. You couldn't find one of these people. They wouldn't even dare to open their mouth. So you just made that up. Where are
Why
all these
could
doctors?
you don't think I know doctors that say
Name
this
one.
it can be dangerous to
Name
people
one.
and that
Name
children
one
shouldn't
doctor.
have it, and
Okay,
children are having heart
one.
issues,
Name
children
one
are having heart
doctor.
issues.
You can't.
Little children are being forced to have
Just
these
one.
shots, and they're having
Just
heart
one
issues.
Name a doctor.
Name one
Name a doctor.
You said a
I don't
lot.
have to. You don't name
one.
a doctor.
There you go.
Sitting here
Bye-bye.
talking to you on the phone, I'm going to name a doctor. That's
Name
just another
one doctor.
tactic you use.
Next week.
Okay,
when
thank
you
you.
come back, you got a whole week.
You name a doctor that agrees with you. Dr.
Fauci.
Schweitzer or somebody.
You're deflecting.
Dr. Fauci.
I'm not
The head
deflecting anything.
infectious disease
Y'all
doctor of the
ridiculous.
whole United States. I'll name 10
Okay,
doctors
thank you.
by next week.
I'm a doctor
I'll
of
name 10.
pathology.
Yeah, I'm just asking you for one. How about Louis? Okay, let's forget opinions. Let's put our money where our mouth is. Give me one doctor next week. I'll give you 10 by next week.
I'll give you 100. How about that?
You just
Steven,
pull
You are
around.
so competitive.
Steven,
Stop on
thank
yourself
you.
tonight. You're
You're-
telling on
Thank
yourself.
you, Dr.
A
Jen.
lot of doctors.
I'll bring everything you want next week. Whatever you want, I'll bring it next week.
Steven, you're embarrassing
Okay, thank
yourself.
you.
You're
You are-
embarrassing
you are.
No,
yourself.
she's
Steven.
embarrassing herself.
You go-
She's
you-
just
you
a tool
embarrassed
of. She's
yourself.
another tool of the
That
left.
was embarrassing.
Let me say
Enough
this.
of you. You're a dime a
You should be
dozen.
embarrassed.
Steven, let me say.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, but this is why
All right,
I can't
thank
argue
you.
with people who have TikTok as their source. Thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So according to the CNN.com article, it says, since the school district told CNN that they have taken action against the parents, but details of that punishment remain confidential. They since issued apology letters to the principal, the teachers involved, and recognized their lack of judgment. He also noted all the children are recovered from the COVID-19 and there was no serious illness among the group. So, Keith, I want to ask you, you're in California. Did you have a situation where some children may have come to school, the parents sent them even though they tested COVID positive?
No, not at my school. I mean, the school I'm at, we have to test every week. We have to test. I test negative every week. We have to. Anybody who tests positive is put on. They can't come to the school for a couple of weeks or something like that. And then once they come back, they have to be cleared again to have a test. So they take all kinds of precautions at my particular school. And not only that, we're about 90% vaccinated. The kids are about 90% vaccinated of all the kids in my school. The staff are all vaccinated. I'm vaccinated. As I've said before, I got 2 shots for the Pfizer shots. No symptoms, no side effects. My wife got her shots,
Okay.
but there no side
Did
effects.
you get a booster?
And I just wanted to say, no booster. I ain't gonna get I don't plan to get a booster. I only got.
Oh, they're gonna beat you up now.
Well,
I did, and I had side effects.
I'm not planning on getting any. So,
well, yeah, you sound real smart, Stephen.
And I don't.
You
Okay.
sound real
All right,
smart
thank
too.
you.
Thanks, man.
Keith, I thought you
Yeah,
retired, Keith. I thought you retired because they wouldn't let you
No,
breathe
no.
air.
No, he's retiring next
No.
year. So,
Next year.
Keith,
Okay.
can you make your point really quickly before I move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, with the last debate everybody had out there, my opinion is I like what Stephen had to say, and I like what the doctor had to say. Here's the thing. My whole thing is I don't argue over the effectiveness of the vaccine. I would rather see a more cogent argument against mandating everyone to get a vaccine. That's what I think needs to be discussed. And I'd like the doctor to talk about. I'd like to know what she thought about that. Mandating everybody to get a vaccine is not.
I actually agree. I actually agree with that. I think that's a more productive conversation versus trying to argue with a doctor about the vaccine side effects. I mean that's not. I mean it should be your individual right whether or not to get the vaccine. Now I will say this.
The New York mayor. The mayor of New York announced the vaccine mandate for private sector employees. And
That's
the federal
right.
government has announced a mandate
but
for private sector
he
employees.
really can't. Okay, so here's the thing with that. I agree that if you have some purview or the individual company just like an individual, a company can decide whether or not it's going to tell its employees to get a vaccine if, in fact, that's part of their normal business operation. I think that's within the right to work. Virginia's a right to work state. These companies, individuals can decide. Just like some companies may decide that there will be no mandate. I think that's where you can decide whether you want to work for that job or not. I mean, you're not forced to work at these companies, right? So, I mean, so I'm with you there, but I'm also about accountability. So you should be able to, go with the decision of the organization. You don't have to work there. I mean, there are private consulting firms that I know that aren't requiring. There are some that are. And so you can go to the ones that don't if you don't want to go to the ones that are. I mean, we have freedom in this country to do so.
So my question is this, and anyone can answer this after I ask it. There was in the southern part of New Jersey, in the Starbucks, there was a Starbucks employee who was handling food, and he ended up having hepatitis. They closed the Starbucks down. They notified the people that they could notify, and everyone went and got the vaccine. How is that different than what's going on with COVID?
Well, hepatitis is different than COVID, first thing.
Hepatitis has a vaccine?
I don't think hepatitis has a vaccine to Stephen.
No,
it
don't.
Hepatitis does have a vaccine. I've had it.
What type of hepatitis? A or B?
Let's get the doctor back on so they can tell us about hepatitis.
I mean,
Hep A is vaccine recommended for children 12 months and older, followed by a dose of at least 6 months later. Hepatitis A vaccine.
Okay. So
wait, just a minute.
There's a difference between a vaccine and a...
Because this is what Stephen was asking. Who has to get a vaccine twice? Remember, Stephen, you just argued with the doctor about getting more than one vaccine?
I said vaccine 4 times.
Okay. Stephen?
Not
Stephen,
twice. Quad times. Quad.
Okay. And let me just say this.
Okay, I got to move on because we don't have much time. You guys are going on and on. So there is a hepatitis A and B vaccine. Hepatitis A and B are 2 types of hepatitis. There are other types, C, B, and E. You get hepatitis from a viral infection. Well, you can get COVID from a viral infection.
But
hepatitis
you can't kill. A vaccine is preventative, right? A vaccine is the difference between a vaccine and treatment, right? You don't take a vaccine to treat. You take a vaccine to prevent.
Yeah, but once you got it, it's too late. So why did they have to go get vaccines after they got it? Yeah, I know.
Because it helps it not go into a different version of hepatitis. That's
that makes sense. I don't know.
Look,
all right, so let's move
again,
on.
That's one thing is treatment, but it's still your individual. I mean, those individuals could have decided not to get that vaccine. All right, it's still, I am your individual freedom to decide medical treatment or refuse medical treatment is fine. Now, but I will say this: if you choose your kids not to get the vaccine, don't send them to school and expose other people.
They do, Guna.
But Guna, some kids have health issues and they can't get the shots. Some kids have health issues and their doctors tell them not to get the shots. Guna, what do you do with those kids that can't get the shots because they have health issues?
He can't answer. He can't answer that. He can't answer that because we got to move on. So, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, according to CNN.com, wants to reestablish a World War II-era civilian military force that he, not the Pentagon, would control. He pitched this idea Thursday as a way to further support the Florida National Guard during emergencies like hurricanes. So why would he be able to get a civilian military force, and how could that be beneficial or not beneficial to Florida?
Well, it won't be beneficial to Florida. Other states have done that. It won't be
it's like a so what? Let him do what he wants to do.
Right.
It'll be beneficial.
He's the governor.
I can't with these people. It'll be beneficial.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, Todd.
I don't know what's happening here, Stacy. It'll be beneficial to him, not the state, and he's using it for his own protection. That's all. But I wanted to make a more important point about the vaccine and the spread of it, about these mandates. You have to be concerned. This is what Jenny was talking about. Public health supersedes your individual right when you're talking a pandemic. Do you understand?
Never goes away.
Just like just please be quiet. Just like during 9/11, your personal freedoms were invaded upon because there was something bigger happening. We were invaded by terrorists. And so, therefore, your liberties has to be quelled for a moment until we get this under control. Then you'll get your
They
liberties
weren't quelled for a moment, Todd. They weren't quelled for a moment. They've been quelled ever since 9/11, and that's wrong. What they did was wrong, and it's still wrong. They shouldn't have taken our rights away from us because of 9/11. And we were attacked. We were attacked by a pinpoint, by a little prick hit. That's what we were attacked by. Nobody invaded this country. We didn't have to do what we did. We didn't have to take our rights away.
Okay, excuse me. You all can't hijack us because we don't have that much time and we have too much to cover. Sorry.
Can we say this about the governor?
There you go. Hello. Good to see you again.
Speaking directly for the first time in months, pleasantries between the two leaders quickly gave way to a more tense topic of conversation.
He told President Putin directly that if Russia further invades Ukraine, the United States and our European allies would respond with strong economic measures.
The US president used a 2-hour-long video call with Vladimir Putin to express deep concerns that a massing of tens of thousands of Russian troops near the Ukrainian border could signal an attack.
I think really where we are at the moment is that Putin hasn't finally decided one way or the other, but he could decide to do something. And that ranges from a large-scale invasion of Ukraine to a more limited military operation, for example, taking some of the Black Sea ports.
Russia says it has no intention to invade, instead arguing it's acting on the defensive, blaming NATO for escalating tensions and calling for a guarantee it won't expand to include Ukraine.
The White House is warning Russia to expect severe economic consequences if Ukraine is invaded. It won't reveal exactly what they could involve, but insists they would go further than sanctions which failed to prevent Russia's annexation of Crimea.
I will look you in the eye and tell you, as President Biden looked President Putin in the eye and told him today, that things we did not do in 2014, we are prepared to do now.
For Ukrainians living near the border, that rhetoric inspires little hope, with reports of skirmishes between the Ukrainian military and Russian-backed separatists just hours before the meeting got underway. We live on the front line. What can we understand? They shoot and shoot. When will it end? A question America's European allies are also confronting as they pledge a coordinated response against signs of Russian aggression. Jade McMillan, ABC News, Washington.
So, Keith, I know this isn't one of your favorite things, international relations, but this is important. Russia says they're really not doing anything, but they're firing. And Biden says, look, man, you got to stop firing or we're going to give you some economic sanctions. Is this going to stop Putin from doing that?
I'm almost tempted to laugh because I don't know what kind of position the United States is in economically at this point to be able to usurp economic sanctions on anybody. But I don't know. I'm going to have to digress to Aguna on that area. But I will say that, this is I don't think that anybody's afraid of the United States at this point. They're not afraid of Biden. I mean, Trump was one thing, as much as you guys hate Trump, one thing you got to admit is that Trump was a man of his word, even though you didn't like that. But he was a man of his word, and he knew how to stand against these countries, like Russia or China or some of our adversaries, as it were. He knew what to do. And they knew that he meant business when he said he would do something. So I don't believe Biden. I mean, what kind of sanctions can we put against them at this point? I mean, the way we're spending trillions of dollars and, putting ourselves in the hole deeper and deeper. I don't know. I'm going to let Aguna answer that.
All right. I want to move on. We don't have time for everyone to answer it, but I want to move on.
We can't even talk about the topic.
Let Aguna
clarify something.
Very
say
quickly,
something real fast.
I'm curious
so
here.
We're the number one. The U.S. is still a number one economy in the world. We can sink Russia. Russia is like number 15. So our sanctions, any sanctions we put against them are going to hurt. Now, the thing is, why would we? What is the Ukraine to us? And so that's where, we're talking diplomatic things. We're not talking about conventional warfare here, which is a good thing because, again, you don't want to send – and those are troops that are firing aren't Russian troops. Those are Ukrainian separatists backed by Russians. Russia is backing Ukrainian separatists. The separatists aren't under, they're rebels basically in
almost
that country.
Almost like a proxy war, right?
It's a proxy war, and it's not, and you got to be careful because you don't want to get into a ground war in Europe over Ukraine because, again, the Ukraine is nothing to us, right? It is a factor to the Europeans because they're getting their oil from the Black Sea. So there's only so much that Russia would do because at the end of the day, if Russia does something, they're still selling oil to Europe. So it's one of the things is to have these words. And to Keith's last point about Trump not doing anything and things not happening, let's be clear. And I live in the D.C. area. I have friends in the military. Russia was saber rattling with Trump in office. You had these flybys. You had all kind of things that they were testing us across Alaska with these different Russian warplanes and warships. So Putin has never stopped doing what he's doing. And, in fact, he was emboldened by the Trump administration because they didn't respond with sanctions when they should have. So, I mean, this is something that's been going on for a while.
Real quick, Stacey, this is post-Afghanistan and what Joe Biden did in Afghanistan.
Wait a minute, Stephen.
So in that spirit of hopeful events of bipartisanship that hopefully will occur as we go forward for the people for the next year, and with, again, a tribute to our members, I'm signing this legislation and send it. It is always an honor to sign legislation passed by the House of Representatives and the Senate to be sent over to the President of the United States to make a difference in the lives of the American people. This particular legislation is legislation to keep government open for the people. It's really regretful that all the work that has gone into it, all the negotiations that have gone into it, that only one Republican voted to keep government open. With this legislation, House and Senate, one of the assaults that were made on it was that they wanted to prevent any funds in the legislation to be used for enforcement of vaccinations. And that's science and funds government. So I signed this to send to the President with great tribute to our appropriators. Left to their own devices, the members of the Appropriations Committee can find their common ground. So let's hope that there won't be any intervention from on high to impede that good progress, because we are hopeful that we will find our common ground with strong legislation.
So that was Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi signing funds to keep the government open and avoid a shutdown. So what were you going to say real quickly, Stephen?
Basically that the whole country is looking at us. It's post-Afghanistan. We left Afghanistan sitting the way it is. It's totally destroyed now. It's getting worse every day. And we showed everybody around the world, like Putin and like Xi over in China, Putin's going to do whatever he wants. If he wants to invade, if he wants to destroy the Ukraine, he can do it. And Xi's going to go in there and get to Taiwan, tear them all to pieces. Everybody knows we're not going to do anything to help anybody And Aguna, I think it was really kind of crass. I understand what you're saying, but it's a little bit crass saying they don't do anything for us. Why don't we let them get annihilated? You know, I would hope that the rest of the country would come in and say, hey, we want peace. Let's see if we can find some peaceful negotiations here, and let's all get together and try to help avert China taking over Taiwan and Russia taking over Ukraine. And
I never said
even though it's
that.
in their own interest,
I don't think Russia's going to invade.
Standing right now because of Joe Biden. I think it's worth a try, and I would get behind it.
Cousin Todd, thank you. So Cousin Todd, today, the Democrats are trying to put pressure on Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi to strip Congresswoman Bobart of her committee assignments because of her, and she's not doing anything. Also, Mark Meadows sued Pelosi in a bid to block the January 6th committee subpoena. Will either of those work?
Well, Bobart should not have said what she said. Now, there was a time when this was unacceptable. But ever since Donald Trump got into
we know
office,
that. Make it quick. Make it quick. You always repeat yourself. We know you blame Donald Trump. Just make your response quick.
I can't. Move on. Never mind.
Oh, great. Thank you. The trial began today for Minnesota police officer Kim Potter, who was charged in the death of Dante Wright. Aguna, will this be another type of trial like it was against the police officer that killed, I'm looking right at him, you know who I'm talking about, in Minneapolis?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the justice system in this country, for the most part, works. Now, I know in the last couple of weeks, people hadn't liked verdicts, and so they try to talk about mob rule and all this other stuff. The only mob was that insurrection at the Capitol, and that's when people don't like decisions, so they want to take things in their own hands.
You're right.
Nobody else. Again, it's my time, Stephen. You know, you like Kyle
I'm
Rittenhouse
agreeing with you. You're right, Aguna. You're
all,
right. That makes perfect sense. You're right. I'm agreeing with you.
Stop. The thing is, I mean, I believe in the justice system. You know, a lot of times we don't necessarily get the verdicts that we like, but it is in place. So we'll see what happens. And in this case, you know, it's a difference between an officer taking a life and use of force and individuals, right? So there's a different lens of the law you got to look through, and they do have purview to take life if they feel threatened. But at the same time, you know, that's where, you know, a jury trial and trials of peers come into place. And it's on the purview of the prosecution to prove without a reasonable doubt guilt. And so when you get into cases of that's where it's important that, you know, understanding the law and enforcing it are a little bit different.
Sum it up. We're out of time. We're running out of time.
I'm done.
You didn't say that before.
You.
Now you say it an hour later, and you never said to Stephen, wait, stop talking, we got to hurry, but you just use that on me.
No, I use it on Stephen. I said, Stephen, you can finish your point after I play that clip because I played it right over him as he was talking. So jurors will be, according to the BostonGlobe.com, opening statements began today for the manslaughter trial. Interesting that Minnesota police officer who killed the black motorist, Dante Wright, was charged with manslaughter, not murder, because she mixed up her gun with her taser and shot him instead of using her taser. So, Keith, and then Cousin Todd, do you think she should have gotten manslaughter, and what do you think the outcome of this trial will be? Charged with manslaughter. Make it quick.
Tell them to go fast. Okay, thank you.
Manslaughter is probably, I don't know. You know, I still don't. I don't know how they're going to prove that she did it intentionally. I really don't. I don't know how they can prove that. I don't know what kind of evidence they could do because she pulled the wrong weapon, obviously. So, you know, it was an accident.
And so that was more negligent than deliberate. So it's more negligent than deliberate.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, right. You could say that.
But
that's fine to say.
Well, after you've worked there for 20 years, you know the difference between the feel of a gun and a taser. One is light and one is heavy. And so you can't if she were new.
You know, you're also under duress. You know, that's just like you could drive for 20 years and you panic behind the wheel.
And she was training different officers. She was training new officers. So make it quick.
That's right.
And then Stephen, really quick.
Okay, if you could stop talking, I could finish. If she were new, just like you used this same analogy for the football players, you and Stephen, if she were new, a year on the job, okay, I can understand. Not after 20 years. You can't make that mistake. That's all.
Stephen?
Yeah, but it's not. So it's not about a mistake, though. It's about murder or manslaughter, right? So it's like it's showing whether or not it was deliberate and intentional versus just negligent and result. I mean, either way, it's bad. But I think one is saying that she went out and intentionally, decided to kill someone versus making a mistake on the job, even though it's very
okay. Thank you, Stephen. I got to get Stephen in here. Stephen.
It depends. I haven't heard so much like with some other trials we've had recently. I don't know if the mob is outside the courtroom and they'll burn down the country.
The mythical mob.
That's the case, that it's the mob, then if she is white and he's black, then she should get life in prison. So we don't have riots and people getting their stuff burned down and people getting ripped out of their cars and getting beat up. That kind of stuff. If the mob wants it to go where she goes to jail, that's what'll happen.
You know what's so funny about that?
Why do you have to go make it racial? Why you got to make it racial?
Stephen and what he said. Stephen sounds just like Cousin Todd, except he turned it around. Todd, the kids tease you. He just did what you did, Todd.
He goes right to race. Well, I love everybody. You used to love everybody. You don't love everybody.
I do love everybody. And I want everybody to be treated equally. And I don't like racism from whatever side it comes from. I don't appreciate it.
Mob.
It's wrong. If a black man dies and a white man does it, then you better convict the white man or everybody's going to riot. That's wrong. That's not what this country is.
Well, Kelly, lawmakers are coalescing around a plan to raise the debt limit by $2 trillion. That's according to a source. And that would be long enough to last through the midterms. Now, both Republicans and Democrats would need to get on board with this plan, but it would create a fast-track process that would allow Democrats in the Senate to raise the debt limit with just a simple majority vote, 51 votes. Now, this would be a one-shot deal. The authority to do this would expire in January so that Democrats would not be able to use this repeatedly. But again, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are now considering a plan to raise the debt limit by $2 trillion. That would get them through the midterms and end some of the political brinksmanship we've seen over the past few months. Guys.
Really quickly, raising the debt limit affects everyday people like you and I, Aguna. Why? Because if they don't raise the debt limit, what will happen to my bills?
Well, it has residual effects on benefits and certain things that the government is doing. It won't have an immediate impact.
Give me an example. Just give me a specific example.
So like pension benefits and things like that. And then there are other things that are paid out of, the debt limit isn't future spending. It's stuff that we've already spent and our ability to pay our bills. And so what you don't want to happen is the government. So the other thing is it has impacts on the stock market because if you don't have confidence in the U.S. dollar, then the other interest rates will go up and stocks will be impacted. But it's interesting that they're pushing it past the midterm because I know the Republicans wanted it to be. Oh, Jesus! Why you need to have a simple conversation about it?
Cousin Todd, will my bills go up if they don't increase the debt limit?
No. But
yes,
what the point is, no, they will not. And that takes time for all of that to happen. But they will increase it. And this is not, like Aguna said, future spending, but people think it is because of the term. But this is for your past bills when Donald Trump was in office, you see? And so Biden has been in for 9 months. And so you've got to pay the bills that Trump racked up. The Republicans were in charge, and they racked up bills, so you have to pay those bills.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Congress just voted to temporarily increase the debt ceiling. Why does it matter to you and I, Stephen?
Well, they're going to have to raise it, but the Republicans can try to fight them back a little bit along the way and make the Democrats have to do it. But I don't know if they will. It's just it's really rough that Todd has to blame everything on Donald Trump when they're trying to pass the biggest spending bill in ever.
Sorry.
It's just ridiculous.
That has nothing to do
with the debt.
I know it doesn't, but I'm talking about generalities. I'm talking about in general, Todd.
Excuse me. So according to Forbes.com, it says, what's at stake if the debt ceiling isn't raised? Keith, it says, in addition to issues like being unable to pay our troops or Social Security running out of funds, if the U.S. defaults on its obligations, it will throw the economy back into a recession while we're still experiencing the financial shockwaves from COVID-19. So wouldn't it behoove McConnell and the Republican Senate to increase the debt limit?
Well, first of all, we act as if we are speaking about honest people, people of ethics,
right.
That's running the country or running the
You're saying
White
McConnell
House.
isn't of ethics?
I say that most of them, if not all, not all crooks. So what in the world are we expecting from them? I mean, whether they raise the debt limit or not. Hold on. Whether they raise it or not.
You got to stop it now. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well,
look, they haven't I still have to cover more.
Look at how the prices
The Washington
have gone
Democrats 2021 will have one major theme: ramming through inflationary spending on a partisan basis that hurts American families and actually helps China. That's how this all-Democratic government began the year, jamming through a wasteful excuse for a stimulus bill that drove up prices, made supply chain problems even worse. Not a single Republican supported it, and Democrats now want to end the year with another massive spree that would make it even worse. The whole country understands that Democrats own this mess. They have seized one-party control of the economy, so you better believe that they'll have one-party accountability for the resulting nightmare. The president and his allies are badly upside down in overall approval ratings, upside down on the generic ballot, upside down on the economy, and the more the men and women of this country learn about the reckless taxing and spending spree that Democrats are planning next, the less they want it or anything close to it. Democrats have wanted to transform the country alone. They want to print and borrow trillion after trillion on their own. They want to create even more inflation on their own. So, as Republicans have made clear for months, they will have to own a debt ceiling increase as well. This week, the House and Senate have reached a bipartisan agreement to make that happen. As the Democratic leader said yesterday, the Democrats are, quote, willing to carry the burden, and so they will. We've reached an agreement on a one-time, one-shot statutory process that will enable Democrats to raise the debt limit at a fixed dollar amount, which they will specify. Much like the vote on an arms sales resolution that occurred yesterday and the Congressional Review Act vote that will occur today, this will be a standard expedited process at a simple majority threshold established by law. Democrats will get one shot.
Okay, so he's saying they're going to get one shot, and so far I think he has 10 votes. But according to this Forbes article by Lisa Rowan, updated October 12, 2021 at 7:38 p.m., she's saying Janet Yellen explained that defaulting, U.S. defaults on its obligations, it could prompt interest rates to spike and stock prices to drop. Consumers, me, you, all of us on this show would bear the brunt of the higher cost of borrowing that will result from a federal default when they want to buy a home, when we want to buy a home, a car, or anything that takes out a loan or a credit card. That's how we're all affected. That's how we're all affected. So, huh?
That's what I was saying before you cut me off, but go ahead.
Sorry, I've been cutting everyone off because you all don't know how to sum it up really quickly because we're out of time. I let you go early, and then we get to the end, and we haven't covered everything, and then you guys are like, you're cutting me off. You cut me off. Don't cut me off. Anyway.
Well, I just find it's interesting what Mitch McConnell is saying here because he's basically saying it's on the Democrats, but they're paying for stuff that the Republicans had agreed on. So it's very interesting double talk, but it's very interesting posturing from a Mitch McConnell standpoint because he's trying to posture it as if the Democrats are responsible for this economy, even though the economy it really isn't doing as bad as people are talking about. You know, I mean, it's all about perception versus reality because you still have record-breaking stock prices, you still have very low unemployment. It's just the inflation caused by supply chain issues are causing prices to rise. But it's interesting hearing Mitch McConnell saying that he agreed on the deal because he's agreeing to pay for stuff that he voted on. But then he's also saying the Democrats are going to own it because he realizes that there's perception about the economy being in the toilet right now, which is really not the case because, I mean, wages are at an all-time high. There's a lot of stuff going really well, but the Democrats aren't very good at talking about that stuff.
Okay, this will be our roundtable. We're out of time. Please keep your responses to less than 30 seconds. We're going to start with Keith, then Stephen, then Aguna, then Cousin Todd. The Department of Justice on Monday filed a lawsuit against Texas alleging Republican state lawmakers discriminated against Black and Latino voters and have again diluted the voting strength of minority Texans when they approved the new redistricting map, according to Axios.com, article written by Fidel Alisan. Why it matters? A Department of Justice assessment of the new districts found that they violate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, Attorney General Merrick Garland said at the press conference. The Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act holds that state laws must provide voters with an equal opportunity to participate in the democratic process and elect representatives of their choosing. So based on that and the U.S. government suing, will we be seeing the U.S. government, specifically the Attorney General, suing more states that have done the same thing, Keith?
Man, I don't know. I was unprepared for that one because I thought we were going to talk about something else. But I don't have much answer for that one. You can move forward.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, I think he needs to check both sides to see what kind of cheating both sides are doing and not just concentrate on one side that is goes against what he needs. But also, Guna, really quick, wages aren't really high when inflation is this bad and it's going to get worse. So the fact that people are making more money doesn't matter when inflation is eating all that money. So they're either breaking even, we're either breaking even, or our dollars are worth a little bit less even now, even though we feel like we're making a lot more money.
Thank you. Aguna.
Yeah, and with those inflation rates, you just got to look at it as the rate of inflation versus the rising wages. So you're right. I mean, yeah, you don't want to necessarily say everything's great when prices are going up as well, but I don't think inflation is rising as fast as wages. And on the other side of that, these supply chain issues are eventually going to catch up. So as long as, people, it's still a capitalist society, so the supply and demand is going to kick in. And so that competition is going to drive prices down eventually once things catch up. But now to the point about gerrymandering and all that stuff, yeah, I mean, this is an issue that's been going on for a while, and anywhere where there's egregious disparity, especially with the census coming out, you got to look at the redistricting and things like that. And in Texas, where you have such dramatic demographic shifts as we've seen from the 2020 census, this is pretty much how the Republicans are going to take control of the House without really even having to get any additional votes. It's all going to come out in the wash.
Okay,
now,
thank you. You're talking over Todd's time.
My last point, to Stephen's point about looking at it on both sides, you really only have cases like this in Republican-controlled states legislators, and you got to realize that there are more Democrats, registered Democrats, than there are Republicans. So the general population doesn't reflect the representation in Washington right now.
Thank you, Cousin Todd. And when I start talking, your time is up.
And what Aguna is saying more specifically is that when the population is non-white, that means Puerto Rican, Mexican, Black, and Chinese and all, well, they want to be heard. They want their voices heard. So they're not trying to vote for a Republican. They want to vote for a Democrat. But because of the gerrymandering, your vote doesn't count. This is what they're complaining about. And for the Republicans to do this year after year after year, it's disgraceful. So that's what they're trying to, this is what they're suing about. And the numbers are dwindling for whites. Whites are just not having as many children. And the census bear that out.
Okay, thank you. But I did want to talk about a few things that we didn't get in this week. We will get in next week. One thing in particular was the young man who shot up 4 students in the school in Michigan. His parents were charged for that shooting because they gave him the gun, and I want to talk about that further. But we will talk about that next week with a few things that we missed this week. To our first responders in our community, you make our lives livable. Thank you, thank you, thank you. To our women and men of the U.S. military for all that you do in sacrificing your lives so that we are free to say whatever we choose on this show. We are forever indebted. On behalf of Aguna, the Nigerian moderate Republican, Keith, the constitutional conservative, Stephen, the independent thinker, and my cousin Todd.
Say what? Are you still using that line?
We appreciate you calling in, Dr.
That's my moniker. Don't wear it out.
I'm Stacey Johnson. Let's keep this conversation going on Twitter. We'll talk to you next week. Good night.